Hello and welcome to what is our final in our Thriving in a Hybrid Classroom workshop series. This is number 3. We are very grateful, as always, for you choosing to spend your time with us, either live or as part of the recording. I know that this afternoon is going to be brilliant, and it is also going to showcase some of what are both Steve and my favourite tools online. So I'm very excited about that. But before we get into talking about the awesomeness that is this afternoon's session, perfect. I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered. We are obviously virtual, but for me, I'm in Melbourne. So it's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation who are were and continue to be the original custodians of the land. And I'm so grateful for them for looking after it for us, because it is such a wonderful place to be. We continue to acknowledge that connection that our traditional custodians have to the land and waterways, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And across the ditch. The Dutch.
Across the ditch. Kia ora whanau, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa, ki a papatūnuku tēnā koe, ki te whare tēnā koe, ki te tupuna tēnā koe, tēnā koutou katoa, tihei Māori ora. And I would like to acknowledge and respect ngā iwi Māori as the tangata whenua of Aotearoa, and we are committed to upholding the principles of partnership within the Treaty of Waitangi. Humie, huie, takie. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. And I do love that satellite image that you have behind there too, Steve.
I just saw it. Yeah, it's a really nice one.
It is, I know. So welcome back. Hi, Steve. Nice to see you too.
Thanks.
I actually think this is the first time we've seen each other today. So
today, yes.
I'm not sure that we need to do a catch up on the webinar, but it's still nice to see you as always.
No, I think there's probably a lot far more interesting things coming up, and I know there are, looking at what's coming up this afternoon, evening, whenever you happen to be watching it. This series has been amazing, and I've found myself kind of backstage just got a mouth open listening, going, oh my goodness, this is so good. So good. So thank you all.
I thought that was like your default. That was your default position, isn't it? Sitting there, mouth open. Yeah. No, we are really excited to have this series. We know that obviously we are in a time of incredible flux and change, and you know what 2022 looks like is yet to be seen. Surely we're continuing to move forward, but we know that that the education landscape is probably forever shifted, and
that's kind of a really interesting point you make, because we're kind of thinking about this idea of hybrid classrooms, learning and thriving them, but this idea of hybrid, there's been a lot of really good things that people have picked up and can take forward into kind of whatever 2022 brings. It's interesting that people are kind of gone, what am I going to get rid of and what am I going to keep? And some of the stuff you're going to see here today is definitely the stuff you want to take forward.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to put a vote out there that if 2022 is not better, maybe we can just cancel it, and like we can skip forward to 2023 if necessary. So
go bush for a year, I think.
Go bush. I like that. All right, live off the land. I think, Steve, this is the time where we welcome in the wonderful hosts for this afternoon, and they exit us out stage left.
I can feel a virtual tap on the shoulder happening.
I feel like it's more of like a hook and pull than a tap. So, yeah. Thanks, Chris and Summer. We'll hand over to you. Thanks again for all your wonderful insights and knowledge and wisdom that you're going to share with everyone. And I know that you are hoping to get the people that are joining us live to share those amazing insights and knowledge and wisdom that they have as well. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thanks, Steve. Hi, Chris. I just wanted, before we kick off, if I can also acknowledge that I am meant to be on Larrakia land at the moment, and obviously pay my respects to elders of our Northern Territory, emerging and past and present, and also just acknowledge that I know that we've got some folks that join us from the Territory. You're having a bit of a tough time up there, so we are throwing all of our love and support up there in these really tricky times as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Summer. So good as ever to be with you, whether you're live or whether you are watching this recorded. We're already at the end of this 3-part course. So we started by looking at the first principles of learning design in a hybrid classroom. We then took a bit of a deep dive into instructional design through technology a couple of weeks ago. And then we're looking today really at putting the learner at the heart of inquiry. So really looking at agency and learning growth. What we might do is just a reminder, and I think I'm just getting a little bit of feedback from your mic.
Okay, I might do a turn on and off again.
I think, but we'll see how we go. What I want to remind people is that we've got a thriving in a hybrid classroom micro credential, which is going to be available for you. There is an exit ticket form. It's very simple. It's not stressful. It's not an exam, but there is a form that we'd love you to fill in at the end of this webinar, and we'll email you a link as well. And once you fill that in, then next week, we will be delighted to provide you with a thriving in a hybrid classroom micro credential, which is, I hope, very, very cool.
Very, very cool. Can I just check on that microphone, Chris?
I think we are okay. There's a little bit of shadow. It's okay. We'll be fine. Okay. Learning outcomes for today, as ever, split into our 4 lenses, which is a really important part when we're designing learning to ensure that we're looking at all 4 of these lenses, as we talked about last week. In terms of knowledge, we're going to be looking at inquiry as a vehicle for agency. And then Summer's going to talk a bit to us about voice and agency and what we actually mean by that. We're going to look at what a brilliant tool that Summer has just to help us to visualize student involvement in learning. And then, as ever, we're going to look at lots of examples of Google technologies as enablers of hybrid classroom inquiry. In terms of mindset, it's very much looking at learning design and being a creative and critical thinker. And then in terms of skills, how do we move up a taxonomy of student partnership? So what are the skills necessary to have a really strong partnership in learning? And then in terms of the actual tools, Google Slides, Chromebooks, Classroom, and Actual Magic. That's a guarantee that some of the tools we're going to show you this afternoon are magic and magical. So what I'm going to talk 100% magical. So what I might do, I think what's happening is I'm getting a little bit of feedback when you're unmuted and I'm talking. So I'm going to mute and let you take this next bit all about the learning design principles. This is a recap.
Beautiful. So we've developed these and you've seen these before, but it's important for us to always ground ourselves in our principles so that we can be really well calibrated for what it is that we are having a look at. We know that there is that continuity of learning no matter where the learning is happening, either online or at school or somewhere else completely. And of course, that link to our social and emotional well-being. When we have a look at these different principles, we are animating these in some different ways, depending on which course we are in. So if we have a look at what it is that we are designing for and have a think about these in a little bit more detail, today we're really focusing when we're looking at student agency and having a good deep dive into inquiry, that kindness to yourself and your learners, very much the moments of joy, levity, and wonder. This is a great time when we're looking at inquiry to be thinking about the world at our fingertips. And when we're thinking about that continuity of learning as well, we're really able to zone in on the multiple pathways as there is that voice, choice, and responsibility. And there's the learner has a very active role here. And of course, that learner agency piece. So we are deliberately designing agency in to all of the learning that we are doing. And in fact, a hybrid environment activates that almost by osmosis, which is very exciting. So they're the 4 principles that we are focused on. And a bit of a reminder of our framework for hybrid learning as well. We've been doing some deep exploration of this with your insights, your ideas, the great examples that both Jim and Chris provide for us, particularly through those Google tools. Now, what's incredibly important as we do explore agency and inquiry is that we start to think about those relationships. We start to have a look at the resources that are available when we're thinking about our enablers. And of course, in those opportunities, there's so much around that sort of agency responsibility. We're able to really activate some amazing things in that student voice, choice, responsibility that we call agency, or that empowerment piece is those opportunities. So it's a really exciting session that we've got here today, Chris, because I think it ties up some of the bits and pieces that we were looking for, some deeper activation of those design principles, and certainly looking at how we could really identify within the framework where the students as partners in their learning lies.
And can I just also jump in and just remind people who are watching us live, and awesome for being with us. Thank you so much. Feel free to jump into the chat and to check in with us. If you've tried any of the ideas we've shared, drop them in the chat. If you've come up with your own ideas, which are even better, which would be absolutely phenomenal to share, more likely and phenomenal to share in the chat. But please do feel free to jump in there. So Summer, we're focusing in, as you say, a lot on agency and personalization in the hybrid space. But can you take us through a little bit what we're talking about when we actually say kind of agency, and what do we mean by that?
Yeah, sure. And there's quite a few things that are incredibly important when we are considering agency, because it is a step up from probably the norm. And certainly when you and I were at school and there was this idea of student agency, it wasn't what we mean now. It's written into so many policies. It's actually written into the Alice Springs Declaration as well. So it clearly underpins what it is that we need to be doing in a school. So when we think about agency, it's degrees. It's not agency is or it isn't. It's very much a spectrum here, from silence to shared decision making. We really love Roger Hart's work. We love the work that Vic Government has been putting out there as well, that we are thinking about how we can actually, through an empowerment, activate students to be partners in their learning. We know that that was a Gonski recommendation as well for improving student outcomes. So we don't want you to think about agency as being, quite binary, like there is student agency or there isn't. We can actually make judgments about everything that we're doing, every action, interaction, and reaction in our schools as sitting on sort of a taxonomy of agency here as well. So it's an incredibly important thing for us to design in, and too often it can be a bit of an afterthought. So Chris and I had a bit of a consideration of this. We do some great work across lots of schools and systems, and I think this was largely informed by a bit of a collaboration of both of our work, wasn't it, Chris? And really thinking deeply about the work of Vic SRC, what's happening in New South Wales with the Doves group, and of course the Northern Territory Learning Commission, which came out of the Harris Commission for Learning in the UK, that there's this wraparound of empowerment. So this idea that students really have the kind of permissions and authority to make decisions about, changes in their school, and importantly about actions in their learning. So empowerment comes as something that we have to deliberately give students, and of course they have to deliberately take. And within that empowerment, that's where the agency really comes in. And agency is a combination there of voice, choice, and responsibility. So students having that active participation where they are making decisions, contributions, partnerships, the choice where they have discovery involved in there, and of course responsibility, where they recognize this shared accountability, that it's not just a case of my teacher is responsible for my learning or my success in I've put academic success, but we know that we're talking about sort of success in social interactions. We're talking about all of those different functions of school there as well. So we would welcome your comments there. But what I really love about this model, Chris, is we've got those sort of three components: voice, choice, and responsibility, all sort of oscillating around each other, activated in different ways, but certainly tied together or contained through this idea of empowerment. Anything else that you'd like to add around those insights into this model?
I know, just very much, and Amy made a really great comment here, this idea of great to lead with the opportunities for agency rather than content sometimes. And the sometimes is key, right? and we know that we have curriculum that we need to, I love the expression uncover curriculum rather than deliver curriculum. You kind of, you deliver milk although we don't deliver milk anymore, but uncovering curriculum rather than delivering it, but really allowing us to understand, sometimes we absolutely need some direct instruction. And we looked at that 2 weeks ago. That's an important part of what we do. And sometimes we give total choice over everything to students, and that's another end of a spectrum. And we are constantly moving across those. And I think while we are really aware of that and cognizant of that, that's when we can design really powerful learning. So we're not stuck at one end of a spectrum at any given time, and we move between those. Do you want to share a little bit about the ladder of agency?
Oh, yeah.
We do love a ladder.
We love a ladder. Now, this is borrowed from Roger Hart's work. There's about 8 levels of student agency in this piece, but the main core of it, and we really kind of stripped it back, because what we want to understand is these sort of 3 levels, the things that we do to students, that they're assigned a role, they might know why, but they're quite passive in there. And what we're interested in is climbing up that ladder, if you will. So really thinking about the doing things for students. That's a lot of scaffolding there. That's understanding the needs of your students there as well. So when we were talking around some of that direct instruction, that's some important pieces. But as you can see, there's still that sense making together. We can see that there's still an essence of partnership, even in that curriculum, direct curriculum instruction or skill building, whatever it might be, that is a little bit more done for our students. And when we can get up into this doing things with our students, that's when we have things that are student initiated. We're really seeing that there's a real ownership of learning on behalf of the students. I love that provocation by Alan November. Who owns the learning here? The true partnership in designing and leading and running projects or initiatives. It does take time to get there. I think that's an important point there, Chris, that most of us are hovering in that sort of 4 and on the bottom levels of width. When we get right up the top of the width, we have to change complete mindsets. Sometimes we've got to change operations and governance structures in our schools. And it is a process, but it is an incredibly successful one. For example, in the Northern Territory, you've got about 14 schools, mostly primary schools, a couple of middle and high schools, that was so powerful in this student-initiated shared decisions true partnership that they were able to convince the minister and the chief executive through the work that they were doing that, in fact, they didn't need an attendance strategy. They required an engagement strategy, and it really changed the whole now 10-year plan for education in the Territory. That's the kind of impact it can have at a system level. That's probably like the North Star there. But what we're really interested in today is understanding how is it that you're activating this 4 and this width. Let's just say the 2 is taken care of and something we want to move away from anyway. We'd love to see in the chat, what are some of the examples when we have the collaboration around the what and the how of learning and assessment? So students might choose the way that they require feedback, for example. There might be choice in the way that they are delivering projects, but largely you're setting the parameters. And do you have examples of the width? The true co-design, the student-initiated, the shared decisions? I'd love to hear those in the chat as well, Chris. Should we give 2 or 3 minutes to bump around some other ideas while we're starting to hear those in the chat?
Absolutely. So I love, whenever I think about learning design, really, and again, the reason we call it learning design is that we know we're sitting down to kind of think about the experience that the children or the young people are going to have. And so we also think about what's their role as a partner in that experience. And this ladder is such a lovely way to think about that. And again, it is a spectrum, and sometimes there are going to be things where it is in lots of ways done to the student, i.e. it's very fixed. It has to be done in this particular way. It has to be done at this particular time. And that's okay.
Or we can't move up the ladder otherwise.
Absolutely. And the danger of that, well, exactly. The danger of that is if you stay there all the time. And the Northern Territory Learning Commission example you gave was a fantastic one. And that's almost the other extreme. But there are lots of practical things we can do. And I often describe this as, if we're thinking of things like content, process, and product. What are the kids learning? How are they learning? What are they going to make at the end, which demonstrates what's the proxy for learning that they create. And traditionally that is essays and tests and things, but there are many, many ways, as we spoke about in 2 weeks ago, we can be much more inventive with this product. But if you think of content, process, and product as, what's the correct word? Equalizers, volume up and volume down on a mixing
or
desk.
Variables,
And you can think about this idea, I'm going to give lots of choice and control over the content, but I am going to keep much more control over the process and the product, for example. So it might be we're going to make a documentary film, which I know Jim would love, and he's going to jump in later on and have a bit of a chat with us, but might make a documentary film and there's a really fixed process, but the content, you can do it about whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Or it could be actually the content is fixed, the process we can negotiate, but the product, you can make whatever you want to represent your learning. And I think all of those kind of models intersect around this idea of where the students are on this ladder. So you turn up the volume on all of those things in terms of agency, and they're moving up towards real partnership. You turn them right down and you keep control. That's when you're in the 2. So as learning designers, I think that's often a useful model for us to think about.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. So any ideas that you have, do feel free to pop them in the chat. There's a tangible one from Music Industry College, Cover Me, where students cover each other's work, student initiated, a true partnership there, and not like a massive scale one like I gave you with NTLC, which probably scare a couple of people off, but that's awesome. But it did move from 4 to with, as it was sort of initiated or suggested by some of the adults in the school, and then obviously it's taken a life of its own. Ryan has said here, challenging students to link some ideas, one from the teacher and one from the student. Brilliant. How is it that we can find that common ground and practice that negotiation, which is very much part of collaboration there as well? Love it.
All right, so what we might do, and please feel free to keep adding things into the chat, but I'm just going to take us through the next part of our webinar tonight, because we did say that we were going to look at inquiry as a model. And then whenever anyone asks me what I mean by inquiry, I like to use the phrase, it's all apples. I often say, how'd you like them apples? I think that might be from Good Will Hunting. But looking at these, it's all apples. And what I mean by that is you have things like inquiry learning. And in Australia, Kath Murdoch is often a name associated with a particular type of inquiry learning. You have things like project-based learning, and you might look at places like High Tech High in San Diego or the Buck Institute in the States. You have things like challenge-based learning, and Apple is a big proponent of challenge-based learning. You might have expeditionary learning, and XP schools in the UK and expeditionary schools in the US do this fantastic inquiry-based learning through expeditions. And you might look at design thinking, which again is another model of inquiry. And often the model I tend to use is the one from Google when we look at design thinking for obvious reasons. And so what I want to say is they're all apples, but, and this is the pun that I've been building up to this entire time, at the core.
That's a drum roll.
Thank you. At the core of all of these apples is this idea of curiosity, of knowledge, mindsets, skill sets, and tool sets coming together and being used in a really meaningful context. So that was my entire gag, kind of building up that joke to the use of core, and I feel that it's fallen very flat. So
it has not.
I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to move on now to something else. But that idea of what we mean by inquiry is not a model of model of doing things. We're saying we want to put curiosity, we want to put inquiry at the heart of children getting more knowledge, developing more mindsets, practicing more skills, and gaining more tools in their toolkit. And all of that, and this is the important bit, I think, as well, within a meaningful context.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was appealing.
Yes, I'm really glad. Thanks, Tim. Thank you so much. He's my new best
You're
friend.
a real
And
apple source of knowledge.
Brilliant. Oh, brilliant. See, I knew it would work. Anyway, I do want to just address this small elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's a good one.
If you ever go onto Twitter, and you will see there are lots of people who are in a direct instruction camp. They say that, you know, inquiry is a waste of time, it's inefficient, it doesn't allow children to be, it doesn't give them structure, it doesn't help to move them from novices to experts. And that direct instruction is the best way to do that. Sorry, I'm just going to acknowledge Tim again, because he is keep going. I love the fruit puns. The more the merrier. Thank you. So the direct instruction model is an important one. However, I would always argue it's not at the expense of inquiry. And also, there are some people who argue inquiry is the only way you should do things, and direct instruction is too structured. And as with all of the great teachers I ever get the opportunity to work with, it absolutely is not exactly, Gareth. It is definitely
the spectrum
not.
Again, right? It's not binary.
It's absolutely not binary, and in fact, it's necessary to have both of those things, very much so. Yeah. And I always think direct instruction is so powerful at helping students to develop really deep expert knowledge and and skills. And that the idea is, you know, as an expert, I can actually save you a lot of time by allowing you to know the most effective way to learn something, to learn this thing, or to develop this skill. And then, we're still going with the fruit guys.
Yeah, you've unleashed it.
But with inquiry, I know that mindset, skill set, and tool set, I need to be practicing that. I actually absolutely need to be doing those things. And so I would argue that direct instruction can come before inquiry, but it doesn't have to. Inquiry can come first, and then direct instruction can come in as necessary. And I'm going to show you some examples of that in just a second, actually.
Nice.
So I'm going to share just a couple of models. And this one you'll be familiar with because it's pretty. And obviously, we're going to give you...
teeny tiny.
So we need to record all of these fruit gags. We're going to give you these slides and things in the classroom, so don't worry too much. There is a lot of information on here, but what I want to show you is when we start thinking in this design process for inquiry, we're thinking about content, process, product. We're thinking about what are the learning intentions and success criteria. What's the driving purpose of the experience? What's the launch experience? All of this, if you've done design thinking, challenge-based learning, Kath Murdoch's inquiry model, you know all of this. What we brought in here was the model we shared with you 2 weeks ago, about input, construct, demonstrate, and reflect as a continuous model within inquiry, including input, which is direct instruction or can be direct instruction. And then often public exhibition of learning and then reflection as one model. I'm going to show you another quick model. This is a slide deck that we're going to share to you. And this is just a kind of rough, if you want to design and just, either print this out or add text boxes. This is just some of the things, that we think about when we're designing inquiry.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to, and I'm going to share this one as well with you. I just wanted to show you this model at the bottom of this design canvas, because really thinking about some of the stuff like summative checkpoints. Where are we going to assess? Where are we going to build in time for critique? When are we going to have synchronous explicit teaching? So when are we going to be together? And I'm going to do some direct instruction, either for everyone or for students who opt in. And when am I going to allow for asynchronous explicit teaching, i.e. teaching which is pre-recorded and students maybe want to access that at different times? So I was just kind of thinking through inquiry and putting these colored dots on just to represent for me those moments of summative assessment. When would I might bring in some critique? And it's just a really helpful I hope, a helpful visual for us to see that inquiry brings all of these things together. All right. Anything from you, Sam? Sorry.
I think that what we're looking at here is ways of knowing and demonstrating as well. And I think what we really know as part of the hybrid as well, that one of the variables that we had looked at was the access to the learning. So we know that there's a lot more feedback rather than it just being either peer-to-peer or teacher to student. There's so many more folks that are now involved in the educative process, from parents and carers to siblings to others. So it's a real opportunity there, particularly with the public displays of learning, or in fact, those assessment checkpoints. In hybrid, that part can be amplified so much easier.
So what I wanted to do is just to I was brainstorming a little bit around what are the different things, what are the different activities, and especially linking into the Google ecosystem, which we're going to do in about a minute. And I was thinking through some of these ideas. What do I do when I'm thinking about planning an inquiry? And I was thinking, like, where do I get my content from? And it was like sustainable development goals. Is it passion? Is it literally been on a call all day today with a school who has built a year 9 elective called The Cube. And within that elective, the teachers are building inquiries for students, which are based on the teachers' passions. And I thought that was really interesting because often we talk about passion, the students' passions. But one of the interesting things with working from my passion is I suddenly become I'm not just a teacher anymore. I'm actually absolutely passionate about this thing that I'm looking at. And one of the inquiries that was designed today and shared was an art teacher who is passionate about sculpture, is working on science and data analysis. So with her students to say, we've got climate data. So she's looking at sustainable development goals and climate, and we've got sculpture. Now let's see what happens. And I'm like, I love that. So her passion she's brought to something which she maybe normally would come through a science lesson or a geography lesson or a maths lesson. She's brought these things together. Sometimes you want to do gross things. Sometimes content is gross. So I was looking at one of them, which was basically, how do we make snot? That was it. I'm just looking for Teresa's sign for how do we make snot.
Love that.
So starting with something gross to get the kids engaged, or starting with a community problem. And for those of you, and I know there are a number of you in this call who've done the STEM and social innovation course as well. That's exactly what we do. We start with these problems. And then looking at the process, like, is it mainly about designing a solution? Is it going to be more researched and presentation of information? Is it going to be collaborative? Is it going to be solo? Is it going to be direct? So I'm just moving up through my post note here. Direct instruction, tutorials, research, reflection journals. What's the driving purpose? Again, is that coming from the curriculum or is it coming from somewhere else? And then we get into the fun stuff. So, for example, if we want input, why can't we use Google Meet to connect out to some experts to give the input instead of just me? We're going to explore arts and culture in a moment. We're going to have a look at Google Earth and Google Maps. So really some amazing input I'm going to share with you shortly. When we're constructing information, we've shared some of these ideas around thinking canvases and graphic organizers, collaborative note-taking in Google Docs. There are bunches of ways that we can use the technology to support this process. And then when we're looking at product and demonstrating, like We Video, Google Sites, choose your own adventure slides. I saw a brilliant piece of work that a student did where they just used a hyperlink on a slide and you kind of choose to do this or do you do this? And it takes you to a different slide. And just so many different possibilities for product. And then really importantly, this last bit on project reflection is the idea, and I'm going to give you a couple of templates for this, reflection portfolios from slides and sites. So we're going to get practical some.
Ooh, let's do it. Let's do it. I was just going to pop in there as well, Chris, that it just makes me think about some of the choice that we're talking about with students so built in there, but that idea of that they don't always have to create something new. They might actually come up with how they're advocating for an existing idea as well, something that they uncover with that passion piece in there too. So that's always a way to reframe as well, create or advocate.
So what we're going to do is I'm just going to come out of the presentation mode and just come into the old messy mode. And I'm going to share a couple of ideas with us. And what I want to do is to start off with some what I think are really fantastic resources that will pique curiosity, get kids thinking. And the first one I'm actually going to just start off with is, this is not actually a Google resource, this first one. However, what I want you to do is to think about this idea of a thinking canvas. So if I look over here, and the idea of a Googleable and ungoogleable question. So a Googleable question is something that I could go and look up. So it might be the date that something happened, or how many kilos there are in a ton, or whatever it might be. So I can find out that information with a Google search. An ungoogleable question would be one which is often higher order thinking. It's often about bringing in some questions and gray areas, like some analysis, and is, for example, if you looked at something around climate change, you might look at a Googleable question and think, what has been the increase in the average temperature across the globe in the last 50 years? A quick Google search is going to get you that answer. However, the ungoogleable question of what will it be like in 30 years if in Melbourne the average temperature is 6 degrees higher? Suddenly, it's a much more complex question. I've got to bring in lots of information, both very valuable questions and different question types. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a chat challenge.
Ooh.
I'm going to show you this beautiful site, and I'll pop the in a second. I'll pop the URL into. Actually, I best not pop the URL into the chat, because otherwise you'll be stuck on it forever, and you won't want to leave this site, because it's the most beautiful thing. So this is earth.nullschool.net, and as you can see, it's the Earth. And as I spin it around, I get kind of a different view. Okay, so hopefully you're already thinking about things like questions that you might have. So what I'm going to do is just put this here, and let's have a look at our kind of side of the Earth for now. And as I click on the word Earth down here, I've got different overlays I can put on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on temperature.
Okay.
So what's going to happen, and it takes a tiny bit of time. It's actually going really fast, which is cool, is I've now got temperature. So as you can see, as I move around, the different colors represent different temperatures around the world. Now, what I'm this is, by the way, this is live data within the last 4 hours.
Wow.
So what I'm going to do is, in the chat, I'm going to give us a minute or so. And what I would love is just using this image, or this kind of animation, just using what you see on the screen. I'd love anyone who feels they can to put a Googleable question that a student might ask, and an ungoogleable question that a student might ask, based on what they see on the screen right now. So the pressure is on, Summer.
The pressure is on. I mean, if I looked at one for myself, it might be, what is the temperature right now in Darwin?
Brilliant. I can actually Google that for you, or I could find Darwin and I can click on it, and it will tell me the temperature. I'm not going to do that yet, because I'm going to do that in a second. But if you're still in 1989, you could have an Alta Vista question. That's a very
Hey, Jeeves.
Hey, Jeeves question. All right, come on. I want at least one Googleable and one ungoogleable question in the chat.
Yeah, let's hear them in the comments.
We'll do that thinking time. It's not awkward when it's a live stream, just to sit in silence for a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of one, and for some reason, I think it was Tom Barrett that gave this ungoogleable around, do birds make friends? I mean, I could have made that up that it wasn't a Tom Barrett question, but it does make me think about does temperature? I don't know, something about, do birds know temperature change as a
Do birds measure temperature in Celsius or Fahrenheit? That's a really important question. We've got some. Yes.
Nice.
What's the coldest temperature today? Love that one. Thanks, Tracy. Which sections of the wind are the prevailing westerlies and the polar easterlies? Beautiful, Ryan. How much has the temperature varied over time? What is the greatest temperature range humans can survive? Love it. So
that's awesome.
A really simple, and the way I do this, by the way, just FYI, let me just show you really quickly. The way that I always do this, look at these coming through.
Yeah.
Is just do it on a Jamboard. Like, we've used Jamboard before. A lot of you have seen that. You can see how much I love a Jamboard. I have a lot of them. And I'm just trying to find my Google one. I think I've put so many. Oh, here we go. I lost it. Where did it go? There it is. So just using a Jamboard, you can do this activity with kids in a hybrid fashion. Just pushing out the board, using the background, which will give you from the thinking canvases, and say, adding a post-it note. What is the average global temperature in 2021? What does it feel like to live in an area with a 45 degrees Celsius average, I should say, not area. So next question. This question is Google, okay? And it's very similar to the one you just asked them. It's I'm going to find, actually, it's pretty warm, because often the darkest color you see in Antarctica is often black. It almost gets down to black. That's really cold, and I can't see it here. But let's take this area here. And in the chat again, I would love someone to tell me what they think the temperature is at the point. Oh, I've just realized you can't see my cursor on this. Oh, you can. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
At the point where my cursor is, what do you think the temperature is?
Oh, we're like playing a guessing game right now?
I like to call it, in mathematical terms, guesstimation. Summer. So let's not just say something random. Let's use our mathematical brains and see if we can have a really good guess at what we think that temperature might be. Guesstimate. Come on, Summer. The pressure's on you.
Minus 20 degrees Celsius.
Jim Sill, I want to know what you think. He's just looking at me.
He's like, I don't know, mate.
I think he said cold.
Saying minus 39 degrees Celsius.
Minus 39. Let's have a look. So if I click on that space on the board, oh my, Amy and Ryan, actually, 38.5 degrees. So you see that it actually comes up here. Not 38.5, minus 38.5 degrees. So Amy was extremely close with 39 degrees there. Well done.
Jim,
sorry. and Jim, I should have said in Fahrenheit. You can change the setting, by the way. So I think it's in here somewhere where you change the setting of the temperatures. But this is a wonderful, simple digital resource that you can share with people. You can do tons of other stuff. If you want to do some science, you might do like chemicals in the air, and you might look at some quite noxious stuff. Which would
how good is that for differentiation as well of curiosity, and be able to say we're looking at the same thing, we're just activating different layers.
Absolutely. And there's so much in here. Now I have another question. And this is one of those, the birds have friends. This is one of those questions that as teachers we often ask, and it is guess the correct answer, which is in my head.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the question. Which piece of beautiful art does this picture make Chris think of?
Starry, Starry Night.
What? I was hoping someone in the chat might have guessed it, but that'll do. No. And now they're going to think we are cheating because that was a pure guess, right?
Yes.
That is exactly what it makes me think of, Summer. So thank you for that. And there is a reason I'm going to segue out of this one and into this one. And if you don't know this logo, this is the logo for Google Arts and Culture. And Google's mission has always been about organizing the world's information so that it is easily accessible to everyone. And that's kind of, organizing a search engine on the internet. But they now do this in so many ways using Google Maps, but also Google Art and Culture brings together incredible artifacts in beautiful places and museums in incredible detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually activate. I'm going to go to the website. Very importantly, and I want to make sure that I show you this. And I meant to figure out how to do this better, but I really struggled with StreamYard in doing this. There is an app, and the app is fantastic. And there are so many other things you can do on the app. Like, for example, and I'll do it now.
And this is the Google Arts and Culture app, yes?
This is the Google Arts and Culture app. Hang on, everyone. Okay. It's not boring. I'm going to take a selfie, which is what I'm doing. I don't know if you can see that. Like so. And then through the magic of computational thinking, it's going to tell me who I look like. Oh, hang on. It's just loading me. It's just loading my face.
I can't wait for the outcome of this.
I feel like my face is broken arts and culture app.
No. Well, it's a lovely face. It's lovely.
Oh, thanks, Summer. Here we go. It's saying I've got no connection.
Oh, you're unique. You're one of a kind. And did I hear earlier as well, you can do this with your animal as well, and it will link in your pet with famous animals from around the world.
It will. It absolutely will. There are all kinds of amazing things in here, but what I want to show you is Starry Starry Night. It's actually not called Starry Starry Night.
No, it's not. That's the
the Don McLean song.
Thank you.
Starry Starry Night.
That's right. The Starry Night by Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh.
So you will have seen this image, so many times. And if I just take you back to Earth, you can say, oh yeah, I can see that kind of. That's fine. Now imagine taking this data and then working with kids to make a beautiful artwork, or getting them to go out and record data around school and make a beautiful artwork. Here is the Google Arts and Culture version of this picture. Now you could have found this anywhere. You could have just Googled it and found this image. But the beauty of this one is that it is taken using a gigapixel camera. So really, really high quality camera on it, which it goes on a trolley and is kind of pushed around the museum. And as you click on the zoom button, it allows you to zoom in. Now you're watching a stream, and you have to trust me more when you do this on your own computer.
Oh, it's going to render.
As I zoom right in, oh yeah, that's pretty good. You can actually see the cracks in the paint.
I can almost smell the oil paintings.
You can almost smell the oil painting. And it's actually lots of bits falling out, right? Wow. And what this allows you to do, I think, is to explore some of these artworks as kind of provocations for students, and do something like a see, think, wonder. That idea of what do you see, what do you think, what do you wonder? Because if I was to show you just this image, now you already know what it is. But if I was to show you this first, what do you see? What do you think? And what do you wonder? Come on, Sarah, what do you see?
Well, I see, some color and some broken lines. I think that it's an old painting because I've seen old paintings in a museum. And what I'm wondering is this something that should be restored and fixed, or is it something that should be left to kind of do whatever it's doing? I wonder if that's a good idea or not.
Well, an interesting question. Should you fix stuff? Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it's a great question. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back out. I'm actually going to invite Jim on as well, because Jim is the person who taught me all about this stuff. So have we got room for Summer? Yeah, we've got room for Summer.
Oh yeah, I can jump out for a little bit. I think you two have a chat, and I'll jump back in.
Oh, it could be a party if we wanted to be.
So
it's
Jim,
so good, Chris. This is one of my favorite tools of all time with Google, for sure.
And I was going to show, because I know you've got a lot of experience using Street View, and Street View is often outdoors, outside, but there is like internal Street View stuff, right?
Yeah, you know what's interesting about this is that sometimes when we zoom into a painting like that, we get this impression that it's so big, and then when we go into the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, it's not that big, that piece. And I think if you got as close as we were just now to the cracks, some docent would go and give you a slap on the wrist, perhaps.
I think they definitely would. You would definitely be arrested. So because they've gone around and they have used these cameras to take these incredible pictures, is you can actually visit MoMA, right? So the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And do people from New York hate it when other people say New York City, Jim? I feel that was a tourist thing to say there.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have enough time to get into that conversation.
Okay, I won't use it. I'll just say NYC. Is that okay?
No, definitely don't do that. That's like saying San Fran. You know that you don't.
Okay,
do that
so okay, I'm with
you.
you.
Yeah, just say New York. Say New York. No one's
so
offended.
if we travel around and we can see like the different paintings that are on the walls, it's as if we can't unfortunately right at this moment take kids to New York, but we can take them to visit MoMA, right? Or we can take them to visit different places. And I'm going to open up Google Maps and Maps. Ooh, this is going to be awful. Oh, Jim, I should tell everybody about Toby.
No,
I think
not right now. Just
not right now.
Type in Museum of Modern Art.
Museum of Modern Art, New York. So take me there. Take me on a journey, Jim.
Yeah. There's a place to buy hot dogs right at the corner right there. This guy's name is Frank, and he's amazing. This is really great because this is sort of going into it in reverse, right? Because we're able to go visit these places like Versailles in France, or any museum, or even walking the streets around the Colosseum in Rome. And as you grab Pegman to drop him right onto that, you probably have to zoom in a little bit closer to that before you do that. But so you can see, if you can see, but can I just draw really quick attention? This is actually a picture from Jeffrey Heil, our friend in San Diego.
I just saw that and I was like, why has Jeff got a picture on Google Maps?
Chris, zoom into it. Just zoom into it a little bit further. There you go. And then now grab Pegman, and what you'll see is lines that are inside that building. Sometimes you see it, but I guess I'm not seeing it now. But
Shall I go to Versailles instead?
You can. And then again with Jeff Heil's picture. What's really cool is some locations like the Colosseum, Versailles, have lines in there, and you can actually drop the Pegman right onto those places and walk around. You can also do that, Chris, in the ACT. So the museums, some of the most popular museums our kids visit, when we could, are available to you to drop in Pegman and then walk around. And it's really, really amazing. See, there you go. If you just drop Pegman here, I often talk about this very same shot that you're doing. Just to walk around, what is this room? What do we call this room? And even better, if you just sort of turn and look at the mirrors there to the left, then you can usually see, as soon as you get past the mirror, you can usually see the person with the Street View camera.
I'm doing a really good job of not. Oh, there we go.
There we go. It's really, really cool, and you can walk around and if the picture exists in the arts and culture library, then when you're walking around in Google Maps, you'll actually see a little button to click on it and enter into that picture. And so it takes you to arts and culture. So it's a really great way. So instead of going to arts and culture and navigating that, you could easily just walk around a place of interest and then navigate some of that art.
And this is just Google Maps, right? Everyone uses Google Maps to get from A to B, but actually there's so much more you can do with it.
Imagine putting yourself into the place of a king or queen, and to be royalty, and just to sort of look at this. there's great leaping off points in this, right? There's great writing prompts that exist in this. There's all sorts of amazing things.
And this was one of the points, right? If I click on this, it's going to give me an HD, tells me all about this painting. I can see more in Google Arts and Culture down here if I want more, or I can view it in HD. It's going to open it up for me. And you can make collections, right, Jim? So you can kind of click on the heart to see how much...
right. Just look right there. Once you've done that, you can go up into favorites and you can see these this like a collection of things that you've favorited. You can't at this time. You used to be able to make actual collections, so really being able to, and then share those collections. But right now, if you find a really cool image, you can hit the share button and you can push that right into Google Classroom.
So while we're going, and we're going to have a look at a few more things right now, any other ideas from people in the audience, please put them in the chat. How might you use Google Maps in particular, or arts and culture, to enrich inquiry for your kids? Because, I mean, we can't even really spend all that much time on arts and culture, but there are so many things and so much stuff in here, including coloring in books and also doing jigsaw puzzles together collaboratively, Jim. So we could do that.
Chris, if you click those three dots, don't click on those blobs singing. Do not click on the blobs singing.
This one.
Do not do it, because
sure?
It's a total time. We'll be done. That'll be the rest of the show.
It's happened. I've just done it.
Don't do it. Did you do it? Don't do it. Please get out of it.
I want to do it so much.
I know.
Okay, I want to. Everyone is now doing.
Everyone's doing it right now, because all you have to do. It's so good. It's so good.
All right, sorry.
If you go back to that main page, and then click on those three lines, and you can actually go in and it's one of my favorites. There is, if you click on that and you go down to collections, you can go in and you can see museums. These collections are called museums, are called collections in this. But click on the map, and here we are making that connection again to maps. And it's what I love about this is that I find that museums are studies of place. And a lot of, maybe not the MoMA in New York, but most museums are collections of things that have taken place, of culture that exists in that space. And as you zoom into some of those places, you can actually go in and uncover the culture of the place, which is really makes it really special when you really you go into Canberra, and a lot of the museums around Australia. There's one really great one in New South Wales near Sydney that really take a deep look into our Indigenous culture here in Australia. And it can be a really powerful experience just to be able to, we've mentioned this before, the idea of the window, the mirror, and the sliding door, to be able to either see ourselves represented in this art, but then also be able to look into another culture, another group of people.
So amazing, and we could do another 5 hours on this. But what I wanted to do is just show a couple of things around. I'm going to mention this and not show it, because I might show it for a second. The kids should see this. Again, this isn't a Google resource, but if you want to lose the rest of your evening by watching the best curated videos from around the internet, which are appropriate for kids and organized by things like animals, nature, food, technology, science, the kids should see this is just brilliant. So if you want to look at something like, for example, I know a great project that I worked with the school on was a Rube Goldberg machine.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to drop out and bring Summer back in. I'll see everybody later.
Thanks, James. See you in a minute. Hey.
Oh, hey, friend.
Hey, friend. So if I wanted to look for Rube Goldberg, I'm not doing a very good job of.
How many great ones were there over lockdown? People making their own Rube Goldberg machines and sharing them across social media. It was very cool.
It's so cool. And if you want, if a squirrel can do it, you can do it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you can build Rube Goldberg machines. And here are some fantastic if you've never seen a Rube Goldberg machine, watch some of these videos. I just wanted to show you these and to show you this website because it is a fantastic curated piece, because there is so much on the interweb, on the internet, that sometimes you need help with the curation of it there. So so the kids should see this as a wonderful example of that. Now, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about how do we actually capture the learning around inquiry.
And invite students to do this as well. This is what I love about these canvases is it's a complete invitation, voice, choice, responsibility,
100%.
agency through empowerment.
So one of the things that we do all of the time, I think, especially when Jim and I work together and with you as well, Summer, is we're constantly asking the question, how do we capture this learning? How do we make it visible? And one of my passion areas is using Thinking Canvas, which we've shared before and we'll share again today, but also using Google Slides as a really powerful way to create portfolios. So this is a really simple example of a code club project. So students working, and again, I've got this for you, and I'll drop it in the chat now. Why not? I'm going to do that a little trick here. This is a good trick if no one knows this trick. Is if you take off edit on the end of a Google Doc and you write the word copy instead. When I capture that, it'll ask you to make a copy, which is really nice. So I'm going to do something awful now, and I'm going to make infinity happen by doing that because I forgot. There you go. I've just I've pasted that in if you want, and it'll make a copy for you of this slide deck.
Amazing. That's so cool.
So what I would normally do is do the Google Classroom and use Google Classroom to push out copies of this for every student. And that's a much nicer way to do that. But basically within this portfolio, and again, this is all around choice, is I've got, this place here where the student can add in their name, but they can change the colors, they can change the pictures, they can do whatever they want. And what I want them to do is to design a piece of code to create a game or write down a project idea. So here are my ideas. This is where I'm going to capture them. Here's a logbook entry. Here's another logbook entry. Here's a picture of my code. So getting kids to create things in Scratch and then copy and pasting the code across. Here's my program running. So as Jim's shown us many times, and I'm trying to think, yes, we did last time, look at things like screencasting. So screencasting my program and putting my video in here, capturing my reflections in here. So all of those things are available within Google Slides, and it allows us to personalize them. It allows the students to personalize them as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, I'm going to show you. I'm going to be much more slick, he says confidently, with this next one, because rather than doing the hack of putting copy on the end, the much more effective way to do it is to use Google Classroom. So what I'm going to do is two things. Firstly, I'm going to mention Google Earth, and I'm going to come back to it in a second. And then I'm going to give you a portfolio. Summer, have you seen the movie Lion?
No.
Surely you have. With Dev Patel, the guy, the little boy who gets lost in India. Have you not seen this movie?
No.
Okay, we're going to stop the webinar now, and you need to go watch the movie. And once you've done that, we can
I've seen
back.
Titanic.
That'll do. So the reason I say this is I'm going to show you a portfolio that I've created, which is a really simple example, which is a very structured way for kids to engage with some online material through curiosity and inquiry. I've got a bit of a driving question, which is called what does it mean to be home? And then if you haven't heard of Saru Briley, I don't want to tell you actually because it'll spoil the movie. Spoilers. Saru Briley was a little boy who was lost in India, who was born in India and became lost on a train. It's an amazing movie.
I don't know that I want to watch this. Go on though.
Okay, well, he was adopted by a Tasmanian couple, so he moved to Australia.
Oh, that's good.
And then, this is a true story. And then he used Google Earth to try and figure out where he came from by matching kind of bits of his memory and things that he thought of to places. And so I don't want to spoil it, but he's using Google Earth to try and
found
figure
his
out
way
where
home, didn't he? He found his way home. Go on.
I don't know. I can't tell you the answer to that question. So what we're going to do is, I've got a portfolio here, and I want you to have a look, and not right now, but I've got a link here to something which is going to take you through this story.
Yep.
Then I've got some questions and some prompts in here. So I want you to go and do some map work. I want you to actually do some measurement. Guess what? I want you to do some Googleable and unGoogleable questions.
Mm-hmm.
I also want you to look for Banpur railway station on the map. And then I want you to, your task is, imagine you are 30-year-old Saru. So this is the guy's real name, Saru Briley.
Yep.
Giving words of encouragement to 5-year-old Saru never to give up. You can write your response here. So a bit of writing in there. And then record your message to young Saru on Screencastify. Now, this is like almost a digital inquiry, a digital worksheet, just embedding some of that thinking. But it links to this. And this, for me, is so exciting. Google Earth, which many of you will have used before, it used to be a program that you had to download onto your desktop, and and one of the things that happened was, as we became more and more browser kind of focused, the whole of Google Earth was basically rebuilt and put into a browser. I think I might have used the wrong link here. Let me just kill that link and do this one instead. And was put into a browser. And what that means, it's /web, that's why. Oh no, I'm just breaking everything now. Earth.
Oh, you've broken the Earth.
Here we go.
Big day.
The web.
Big day,
I've broken the Earth. What happened was that a bunch of, not only was Google Earth recreated within the Chrome browser, but it was also a bunch of content was created in partnership with lots of other people like the BBC, like National Geographic. And also...
Taronga Zoo, I think they created some content, didn't they?
They certainly did, Taronga Zoo. So there's a bunch of it there. Now, obviously, for some reason, it doesn't want to work for me today. And that's okay.
Broken the Earth and the internet. Two things we need. That's okay, though. You do you.
Okay, that's not awkward at all. So if we just do your own thing for a little while. I did test this afternoon to make sure everything was working.
I know. But hey, live animals and such.
Never work with technology and children.
Yeah, what I do love about the portfolio piece, though, that you've put in there, because of course, as we've gone through these three courses, it's getting more intense in how you're activating that hybrid learning, but also the position of the students in there as well. And it's got that sort of deeply personalized, it's got that responsibility in there, it's got that choice. And to be able to then also kind of bake in some of that digital literacy through curiosity as well. Pretty amazing design.
Absolutely. And here we go. The Earth is starting to happen. I'm really nervous now to even touch this. But as you can see, the Earth is still here, which is great. Now, what you can do is you can search for lots of different things. So you might want to go to the Eiffel Tower. And I'm going to find Saru Briley in a second. Eiffel Tower. There is a bakery near Tullamarine Airport. That is not the one that you want to go to. You want to go to the one in France.
I don't know. At this point, a bakery near Tullamarine sounds pretty good to me.
Would be pretty good as well, I guess. Yeah. So as we fly into to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower, you'll see it kind of starts to render in 3 dimensions. So again, traveling the world, being able to have a look at the Eiffel Tower and understand the scale of it next to other buildings is pretty cool, right? So there's a whole bunch of things you can do with flying around the world and visiting different places. But the very exciting piece is on the left-hand side here where it has the ship's wheel. That's called Voyager. And as I open up Voyager, what you will see is that there is a bunch of this content made. So things like climate change and coastal cities, what will happen to coastal cities. And if you go through, there is so much stuff in here, by the way. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
But
huge amount.
you might go to education, and in education, you've got like, you want to do some maths, triangular structures, geometry of sustainable architecture, the geometry of castles. You can actually go and have a look, poetry around the world. There's some absolutely amazing stuff in here, fairy tales from around the world, math and circular structures. Uluru is sacred place, so you can go and visit Uluru and learn all about the culture and the importance of Uluru as a place. And as you go through, there are so many. There's so much kind of information in here. And I'm just looking for one in particular, which was the Saru Briley one, but now I can't find it. I'm doing a great job today, Sam.
No, you really are. You really are. And there's different, like, I think even if we're diving deeper in as well, some of the ungoogleable questions, because you've unleashed those in me, the great hikes of the world. My ungoogleable question is, who decides on what a great hike is? And we can then have those sort of media literacy and bias and those conversations as well once we've done that deep dive into inquiry. This is very
100%. And it is just a really, really powerful tool. I'm going to try and find Saru Briley in a second.
Sure.
My link didn't work, but I am going to show you this one just because I think people remember this. Can you remember Carmen Sandiego?
Yes. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Well, the question is, where on Google Earth is Carmen Sandiego?
No. So, now all the 90s kids are loving this one.
The 90s kids are all over this.
Yeah.
And this is built into Google Earth as well. And again, I mean, this is a game, but when we're talking about joy and we're talking about wonder and all those kind of things, there's absolutely an opportunity here to explore the world using games through Google Earth. So you begin the chase, and it's even in 90s kind of graphics and fonts.
So
and you've got to find the crown jewels from London. So what it's going to do is it'll take you somewhere. You use the magnifying glass. You don't need to read the instructions. Never read the instructions.
No, just go for it.
Just go for it.
What a nice connector between teachers and their nostalgia and the curiosity of students as well.
It's so cute, right? It's so much fun. And so anyway, we'll go into this, and it's going to get us to look around, use the magnifying glass to interview witnesses, go to the Tower of London. I think Where's Wally is still there, Hanan. I just got to find it. So it's going to take me to the Tower of London. It's going to get me to it's going to ask me some questions. So I saw the person you're looking for, and she asked whether Mount Fuji is still active. So where might that person want to go? And then I'm like, should I fly to St. Louis? Should I fly to Athens, Nairobi, or Tokyo? Anyway,
go to Tokyo.
I will.
Good.
Let's go. So literally the world at our fingertips. And the whole point of having the portfolios is just to structure that so that kids don't get lost. Because there is so much stuff in here, and it's so awesome. But you can easily get lost in it. Oh, there's Carmen. She's on the right track. All right. Let's bring that
You're having a lot of fun there. You know that if I just go back to some of the conversations we had earlier, what a great tangible example of the intersection between that direct instruction and that inquiry. You've set up some direct frameworks and scaffolds so that it really can unleash that curiosity of students. If it was just free range, there probably wouldn't be so much curiosity or certainly activation of that knowledge and the next steps as well.
And there is so much stuff in the world that we absolutely need to structure it. And one of the criticisms of poorly done inquiry is that it is poorly structured and kids get lost. And I think that's a really, really valid point. I am at some point going to find Saru Briley, but I am going to give up on him for a moment. All right, so we're rattling as ever towards the end of this. But what I want us to do,
so quickly.
I've got one more portfolio that I want to share, and I'm going to put this into Google Classroom so everyone gets it. And it is let me just come down here. This one, which is a design thinking canvas portfolio. So what I've done is, if you're interested in design thinking, then what I wanted to share with you is this is a way that you can, again, structure design thinking using a portfolio. So if you've never done design thinking before, it is a type of inquiry. I'm showing the right thing here, which is cool. It is a type of inquiry, and it is a structure here. And we're not going to talk loads about this, but we're just going to give it as a bit of an example. And what I've done is I've built into this portfolio, which I'm going to put out into Classroom in a tick. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I've built in pieces which are really helpful stepping stones in this process. So the first piece I've built is this Kanban board. So a Kanban board is just a to-do list.
Such a good way to show momentum.
Yeah, what a lovely point. And I'm sure I've shown this before, but I'm just going to repeat this bit because I think it's so important. Is like, complete your challenge statement. Okay, I'm working on my challenge statement. It happens to be on the next slide. So it's just down here. But I can hyperlink these as well within a slide, so I can move around. But once I've done that and I need some feedback, what I might do then is move it over to here. My mouse work is poor today. Move it over to here, and I can insert a comment. And when I insert a comment, if I put something like @Summer, who happens to be my teacher, there she is, and I say, hey, could you have a look at my work, please? And what that's going to do is I can assign it to my teacher, who is Summer. And then Summer's going to get an email saying, Chris has left you a comment. Can you have a look at this? So it's a really lovely way in a hybrid world, rather than putting my hand up and saying, Miss Harris, can you come and help me, please? I'm actually doing that in a slightly asynchronous way, in a hybrid way.
Chris, Vic SRC did a big sort of survey and inquiry into learnings from remote learning, and I was diving into it today, and students said actually asking for feedback and commentary, they love that they could do that personally with the teacher, and said when we're back in the classroom, it would be great if they could still have that hybrid way of doing that. They were from year 5 to year 10, I think, said they'd be far more comfortable asking for feedback and commentary from teachers if it could happen in this way, even when they're sitting in class.
Yeah, and there's also something more enduring about it. It's not ephemeral. So although I love having spoken interaction, there's also something nice about capturing some of that as a record as well, right?
Yeah.
So it might be that Summer, you would reply to this comment. It might be that you would do a recording into this comment, and there are some really nice audio. You might do a little video really quickly and pop a video into my portfolio. And so anyway, all the rest of the bits of the portfolio, I've got some actors mapping in here. There's reflection pieces in here, and it just like what went well, even better if. Building out some persona cards. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but if you've used the design process, there are definitely some hopefully useful tools in here that you might want to use. But most importantly, is how do we make this work for kids?
Yeah.
So I'm in the classroom that we're using for this, and if you haven't joined the classroom, please do. I think if we can get a link in the chat, Jim, if we can find the link for the classroom. If you haven't joined it, that'd be awesome. And I'm going to go to classwork, and I'm going to create an assignment. And this assignment is going to be design thinking inquiry. You might call it inquiry or project. I'm going to give some instructions. There we go. And then I know lots of you here in this call know how to do this, but I'm just going to reiterate it for you. Is I'm going to add a file, and it'll come to my recent ones. Hopefully this, the design, there we go. The design thinking template is there. So I'm going to insert that. And really importantly, there we go. Really importantly, I'm going to change this drop down to say, make a copy for each student.
Great.
So I'm going to make a copy for each student. So we're all happy with this. I'm going to send it out to all students. Now, if I wanted to send it out to individual groups, I can untick, and I might say I'm going to send it out to these people here, and I might give different differentiated resources. So for one group, I might give some vocabulary support. For another group, I might give something like a stretch activity. So I'm just going to assign this to everyone. I am going to give it a due date of tomorrow. So you got to go fast. I'm going to put it under a topic. Now, I haven't got a design thinking topic, so I'm actually going to create a design thinking topic. And I could add a rubric, and I could, and this is very cool on Workspace Plus. So the kind of there's an edition of Workspace where at a very low cost you can have other things like plagiarism checking.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is a bit magical. But what I'm not going to add any of that stuff. I'm just going to assign this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen, and this is why I love this idea of hybrid and Google Classroom is kind of your learning commons, the place in the middle.
Yeah.
That's now assigned. And it often takes just a few seconds for this to appear. So I'll just leave it sitting there for a second. What's going to happen is in the background, Google is making a copy of those slides for every kid. So all 84 people in my classroom are currently getting a copy of these slides created for them. It's like magic, right? And what that's going to let me do is see every single kid's portfolio in one place. So I don't need to go off looking. I just need to find someone, and let's have a look. JJ Abrams, he's always busy. He's a very, very hard. He must be in about 150 Google Classrooms, I reckon.
Yeah, I think very, very busy. Very important writer.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually Tracy's in the call, so I'll jump on Tracy's. So I actually jump onto Tracy's portfolio, and that's now it's automatically created a version of the portfolio for Tracy. It's appended her name, so I know who it is. And rather than me having to go and open up everybody's files, like if I had them all in the folder and I had to open up the files, rather than doing that, what I'm able to do is either use a drop-down menu here and go onto someone else, or I can even just scroll through. Like I've got 84 in this class, so it's pretty big, but I can scroll through. And what that lets me do is look at each individual's work. It also lets me use comments, and there is a comment bank.
Right.
So if, for example, I was to say, insert a comment here, like that, and I was to say hashtag, and what that does is as soon as I click hashtag, it brings up my comment bank.
Yep.
And so if I do hashtag love, it'll start to, oh, there we go. And it gives me the comment. And I can still adapt that and say, Georgina, I love what you've done here. I mean, that's not really very useful.
No, but
nice.
What it says is I see this work. I'm interacting with it before you can get into some deeper feedback. I still think that's really important.
Absolutely. So a really lovely way to manage those inquiries is to build out a portfolio and then distribute that portfolio out to each student so that you can then enjoy seeing their learning growth, and giving them some feedback on that as well. All right, so we're actually getting right to the end. Any questions as ever, put them in the chat.
Yes.
But what I want us to do is just going to bring back up this last slide.
Right.
This one here. There we go. And what I want to do is just briefly remind us where we've been. The first principles of learning design in a hybrid classroom, 6 weeks, like 12 months ago, whenever we did that, 6 weeks ago, I think. Then whatever. And then a couple of weeks ago, no, 4 weeks ago, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Then the second one, deep diving into instructional design through technology. And the final one, putting the learner at the heart of inquiry, so agency and learning growth, which has been today. We would love to give you a micro-credential based on that. And what we're going to do is just pop into the chat the exit ticket. And we'll also send this in the follow-up email. But the exit ticket is a really simple form, which would be awesome if you fill it in. It does ask you to reflect a little bit on the course. And it also asks for a little bit of feedback if you're happy to give that. But if you can do that within the next week, then we will issue you a micro-credential. We will close it off after a week because otherwise it will never end. But we will issue a micro-credential based on that. Nice. All right, we do have a question. I'm not sure I know the answer to this. Question. Say you have a few classes assigned. Is there a shortcut to seeing where they have last edited or to where they are working when you don't have a Kanban board? If you're live, if you're live in this, if the kids are working live, you can definitely see where they are. So if your kids were working live, you can click on their icon up here. So that's Jim's, and I could see which slide they were on if that was live. But you're interested in seeing like what they did last. You can, and I'm just going to double check that just to make sure I'm right. And Jim, let me know if I'm wrong, because it could well be wrong. If I go into Tracy into yours, there is the option up here, which is actually hidden at first, is to see, let's just get this to load, show the whole menu, is to go to File and Version History. So what you could do is I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, would be to go, if you wanted to really see what was going on, would be to go to See Version History. And what that does, there haven't been any changes made here, obviously, because this has just been pushed out, but that would show you the last change that was made. So that could work, Tracy. It's a little bit of work, right? I mean, it would take you a few clicks to get there, but you could certainly see the last thing they were working on. And I know I've seen Jim and Kimberly actually talk often about how you can use version history to see kids' work. Like what was your draft like 2 weeks ago, and what does it look like now? So kids can actually see that, because remembering in Google that there are no keystroke is ever lost. You never lose work. You don't need to do versions per se, because the whole history of your document is recorded there. Yeah, that's a really good point, Anne, as well. So if you look, you can see when it was, I think it's when it was last opened. I'm not sure it was when it was last edited. So you could see that in your Google Drive folder as well. But yeah, I think probably, Tracy, the shortcut would be to go and look at the kids' work, and then File Version History would be the quickest way to see exactly what they changed most recently. All right, any other questions?
Just make sure you pop them in the chat. And if there's questions that come up, Chris, as well, we can put those in the Google Classroom as well. Keep that community ticking along. We'll make sure the exit ticket is in there as well, particularly for those who are not live on the call, but are certainly doing the work and following along. So we've got that there too.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much, Jim. I think it's that awkward time when we all come on and do the awkward wave.
That's the best time of the day.
It's been so much fun. So much fun to work with Summer, so much fun to work with Jim as ever. And Nick and Therese are amazing interpreters.
Yes, thank you.
But most of all, it's been so great to hang out with those people live in the chat. And it's not that we value you more than people who are watching the recording. It's just that we feel closer to you, and that we feel that your input has been so wonderful. So please make sure you fill in that form so that you can get your micro credential. Alrighty. Absolutely. Well, with that, is it awkward wave time?
I think it's awkward wave time. Such a great session. Thank you for having me along. And of course, we'd love to see in that Google Classroom. And I think at the beginning, it's got all of our Twitter handles, so you can keep that conversation going there as well.
Awesome. Take care, team. See you next time.
Everyone. Cheers. See you.
Awkward.
So we still awkward wave?
Keep going. I'm just dragging it out.